In my last video, I talked about how to manage your emotions at work. But what if you're thinking, I'm tired of managing my emotions at work? Can't I just be less emotional? I get it. And yes, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Well, the good news is there are things you can do to just bring that emotional water level down a bit so that you don't feel like you're constantly bailing the boat to keep up. So let's talk about a few. One, add more transitions to your day. When we used to go into the office every day, for those of you who don't still do that, we used to have these commutes, these great transitions between the kid who was driving us freaking crazy by wasting the milk in their cereal, and we would have 15, 20, 30 minutes of commute where we were listening to the radio and looking at the things going by in the window, which would allow some of those emotions to dissipate, which meant we didn't have the same emotional bleed into the next thing we did. But if you're literally just dumping the milk down the sink and then clicking onto a Zoom call, that emotional contagion and spillover is likely to be high. Same with leaving a physical meeting and walking down the hall and grabbing a coffee, and those transitions that prevented leakage from one situation to the next. So try and bring some of those back. I'm a big advocate for the 50-minute meeting to make sure we've got 10 minutes. I also have a Spotify playlist that's my dance break playlist with a bunch of songs that it doesn't take very many songs, but songs that I cannot A, sit still, or B, feel cranky when I'm listening to. I just put them on 3 or 4 minutes and I've had a transition that prevents the emotions from that sort of compounding that happens if we go straight from one thing to the next. So add more transitions. Second, compartmentalize. And it's a little bit of the same idea that if we're worried about a bunch of things or even thinking about a bunch of things at once, what I call having a heavy thought load, then we are more likely to have those emotions kind of jumping in. Instead, we want to be really clearly focused on one thing at a time, turning off all notifications, shutting every window on our computer that isn't the one that we're using in the moment. That kind of focus can really help us to have something constructive and useful we're doing, get into focus and flow. And when you're in flow, you're much less likely to have that intrusive thought of the emotional reaction. So compartmentalize. Third, communicate earlier. So often when there's something that we're not sure about or we don't like, we stay quiet because we haven't got the perfect response or the perfect thing to say. But then our concerns start to build and snowball. And then by the time we're talking about it, we are emotional about it. If instead you communicated early, you could communicate while you were still having an intellectual or logical reaction to the issue. So when you start to feel like something in this plan, like I'm not upset about it yet, but I know there's something going on, just say that. I don't even know yet what's worrying me or what's going on, but I have some sense that we aren't talking to the right people here. I'm worried. Can we take a minute and figure out who we should be talking to? When you can do it early, you're going to communicate from a place that's constructive, and you're not going to let it get to that point where it's an emotional conversation. So communicate a lot earlier than you think you should. All right. Next, healthy relationships. In the Framingham study, the big longitudinal study of what actually makes us healthy in the world, healthy relationships win. They win over everything else in the study. So, where are your healthy relationships in your week and in your month? So, think about who are the 5 people that you could connect to in any given month that would really help you feel seen, that would give you a place to feel safe, feel connection, and be deliberate about getting those in your week and in your month. They will create that natural place to bring in lots of positive emotions, but also to vent some of those negative things that may be building up. So invest in those healthy relationships on a regular basis. Next, self-regulation. So if there's one thing the research says about bringing down your, general emotional load, self-regulation is very, very high on that list. And number one self-regulation strategy is effective sleep. So making sure that you are prioritizing your sleep, that you're addressing problems that are affecting your sleep. Don't put up with poor sleep. That's something to have a conversation with your physician about. Get into your sleep hygiene, make sure you are prioritizing sleep, but also the fuel you put in your body. If you have wild insulin swings, it is not going to be surprising if your emotions start to get out of control. But also making sure you're moving your body, getting out into nature. There's lots of studies about how our emotional regulation is improved when we spend time physically in trees. Finding joy. What are your hobbies? Where do you nerd out? There is nothing better for creating positive emotion and doing something you nerd out on. It's one of my favorite questions to ask my clients is, what kind of nerd are you? And even as they start talking about it, it's amazing how they light up, and you can see just this really positive affect bring the room. Okay, mindfulness, another extremely effective thing. You hear about it everywhere. But you know what? It works. And it works because we start to understand that our emotions are not us. We can see that we can observe our emotions from over here. We can, put ourselves on the couch and be the therapist. And as we learn to do that, our emotions hold less sway over us. We are more fluent in what our triggers are. It's a really, really effective thing. So if you are serious about being less emotional, bringing down that sort of general emotionality you're feeling, mindfulness, you can't do much better than that. So these are strategies that have lots of research evidence that we know work, but that doesn't mean they will be sufficient for you. There are many folks for whom there are mental health reasons why these strategies are not enough. Hormone imbalances, the way your neurotransmitters work, past traumas. There are all sorts of things that may mean that these strategies are not sufficient to help you bring that emotional waterline down far enough. In that case, seek help. There's so much help now. So talk with your physician, engage a therapist. There are helplines in every region of the world. So get the support you need if these strategies that I'm talking about aren't enough to help you kind of get on top of that emotional wave that might feel like a tsunami for you. But for most of us, the issue is that we don't invest enough in our healthy relationships, in our self regulation, in our sleep. We don't create a day that has the right kinds of transitions and focus and compartmentalization. So try all of those things first, because I bet you'll find a considerable improvement in how frequently you get emotional at work and the severity of those emotions. Okay, dealing with other messy, emotional, hard stuff at work. Check this out.